Krista is a professional learning specialist based out of Denver, Colorado. She has a master's degree in education and was a teacher for 10 years in New York City, Chicago, Iowa, and most recently Denver, where she's also an instructional math coach. Krista is really passionate about giving educators and students the confidence to become successful problem solvers through the use of ST Math. We know you're going to learn so much from this session, so I'm going to hand it over to her and hopefully you enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to really give an overview of our Puzzle Talk foundations and how you can use this in your classrooms. As I'm presenting today, Allison's going to be keeping an eye on the chat for us, dropping some different links and resources in there throughout that you can access. And if any questions come up, please put those in the chat and Allison and I will be able to answer those for you throughout today's training. So to get us started today, Allison is going to put two links in the chat for us. Both are options to pull up our digital agenda for today. And we're going to be using lots of different links and resources throughout today's training with these. And feel free to take notes in it, refer to it back later on as well. So I will give you all just a moment to pull that up. Again, that link is in the chat for you, and then we will dive in and get started. So to kick things off this morning, I want to give you a moment to reflect on some mathematical discourse. So I want you to take a moment and think about why talking about math with your students is important. So maybe think about some methods that you've used to encourage math discourse in the past with your students and why that might be important. So take about 30 seconds to think about that. And when you're ready, feel free to share your thinking in the chat. So would anyone like to share why they think talking about math with students is important? Yes, Linda. So it demonstrates one's understanding of the topic. Absolutely. Yes, it's a great time for celebration. It builds confidence in what kids are thinking. It leads to understanding how to solve the math problem. Absolutely. And it shows that mistakes might happen. And we encourage those mistakes, right? To help get students engaged. Yes. And bouncing ideas off of each other. It's a great motivator to get thinkers started. Absolutely. I mean, we as teachers can go up there, right? And say things how many times, but for some reason, if a student says it, the rest of the kids kind of cling on to that and are a little more apt to take that understanding in. It can help with anxiety. It encourages that critical thinking. Absolutely. It allows you to hear their thinking. Yes, where they may have gone wrong. Maybe they slipped up a little bit to get students involved. It helps students demonstrate understandings and clarify for other students. Absolutely. And sometimes student language, yes, is better than teacher language. Yes, Denise, I 1000% agree with that. Yeah, and to learn where students are in the math. It gives students a chance, yes, to hear other students' ideas before jumping in to share. Sometimes it can, again, help with that confidence if they're hearing their ideas validated by other students. Monitor for misconceptions. Yes, students hearing instructions and processing them in another way. Absolutely. And so using ST Math to drive this mathematical discourse really allows for that purposeful conversation around mathematics, and all of those great ideas that you just mentioned go along with, so many reasons why students should talk about math. Thank you all so much for sharing those thoughts. So research shows that when students talk about their mathematical thinking, they are even more motivated to learn, and they learn even more. And so I have a quote from an Education Week article, and research cited in this article showed that when a district started focusing on math discourse, that English language learners improved by 5 percentage points, and native English speakers increased by 7 points. So really giving students that opportunity to talk about math matters. And ST Math puzzles can support all of the reasons that you shared to really engage your students in that mathematical discourse. And when we're using ST Math to do that, we call that a puzzle talk. So Allison also shared in the chat with you the link to the full Education Week article that we briefly referenced here, if you'd like to look at that following today's training. And so these are our objectives for today. And I really want you all to walk away and be able to start using ST Math puzzles as a tool for math discourse, or like I said, a puzzle talk right away in your classrooms. So I really want to make sure that you're equipped and prepared. So you'll experience a puzzle talk. You'll learn how to use an ST Math puzzle to facilitate discourse. And I will show you many different resources to support you in implementing and planning a puzzle talk for you and your students. And so when we're thinking about this math discourse, our ST Math puzzles are really a great resource to get this conversation going. And so when you're thinking about a puzzle talk, these can be used whole group, maybe to introduce a new topic, maybe you want to review a concept. These also work great in small groups or in intervention settings as well. And when we use an ST Math puzzle to encourage students to talk about math, again, we call this a puzzle talk. And the best thing about this is you don't need to know how to play the game, where to click, what to do, how to solve the puzzles. We really want students taking the lead and taking control of this mathematical discourse. You are more there as a facilitator, asking some questions and guiding students along in the process. And we're going to experience a puzzle talk in just a moment. But on the screen now, I have a picture of a teacher who is engaging in a puzzle talk with students. So taking a look at this picture, take a moment to look at that. And then when you're ready in the chat, what do you notice about what's going on in this picture? A lot of student engagement, absolutely. Yes, they have whiteboards and are solving along with the teacher. It looks like they're eager to participate, very engaged. Yes. Yeah, you see those hands up, everyone's eager and engaged, absolutely, being interactive with those whiteboards. Almost all students are ready to participate. Yes. Most of those students' hands are raised. They do seem really excited to dig in there and very motivated. It looks like there's a conversation going on. Absolutely. And the teacher is modeling on her whiteboard along with the students. Yes. And it looks like there's engagement, which means learning is occurring. Absolutely. And you'll notice too, the students have those whiteboards, like you pointed out, they're not on those individual devices playing those ST Math games, right? The teacher has a game projected and all the students are focused, engaged, motivated on that game that is projected in front of them. Yes, and they are not at desks, they are on the floor and engaged and ready to share. Absolutely. Great observations. And so we are going to experience a puzzle talk. And I have picked out a third grade game for us to engage in this puzzle talk in, and it has to do with fractions. So I'm going to pull up a game. And again, as I am doing this, I'm going to kind of step into my teacher mode, maybe step in and out of presenter mode as well. And I'm going to ask you all to put those third grade hats on and be third graders with me for just a few minutes this morning, which is I know is exactly what you all want to do on a Thursday, but it will be worth it, I promise. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up this ST Math game. And again, this can be done whole group, projected like what we're doing now, can be done small group. Maybe you're at the back at a kidding table, you pull this up on your laptop, swing it around, and you can engage with students this way as well. And so before we start here, I'm going to put a link in the chat for you with a suggested materials, and Allison has beat me to it. Thank you so much, Allison. And what she has put in there is one of our math mats, which we will talk about in a little bit. Since we're working with fractions on a number line, this particular math mat has a 0 to 1 number line, as well as a 0 to 5 number line. So this would be a good opportunity for students to maybe use that number line, have it on their whiteboards, maybe put it in those plastic sleeves as they are engaging in this puzzle talk with you. And so I'm going to pose some questions for you all as we are taking a look at this game. Please share your thoughts, your answers, your questions in the chat as we are going. And so taking a look at this puzzle, what are some things that you all notice or see in this game, or what are some wonderings that you might have? See a number line 0 to 5, absolutely. A number line, oh, and whole shapes, absolutely. You can tell me more about some of these whole shapes that we're seeing. Oh, there we go, Jessica, the rectangles, maybe thinking that they're filled in to represent a whole. Excellent. 5 equal parts, a number line, different shapes, absolutely.
Someone from the WOVA chat shared parts of a whole are displayed.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Allison. Parts of those holes. Oh, I see the number 5. Absolutely. 5 whole rectangles, 1 whole partitioned into 5th. I love this mathematical vocabulary that we are spitting out this morning. Absolutely. And I'm going to step out a second and go back into presenter mode, but you all know, your students know, there aren't a ton of words or directions on our ST Math games telling students where to go, what to click, how to do. If you all or your kids ever need a hint about what to do or what to see, you can always click on the screen and something is going to flash. That's going to be our hint that we have to do something with whatever is flashing. And so in this case, as I'm clicking around on the screen, you can see this little box here is kind of flashing. There's a little yellow dot above it and the number, it's on the number 0. And so that's our hint that we have to do something with that. So this would be a great place for a turn and talk with your kids. Maybe they're on the carpet like we saw in the picture. Maybe they're at that small group table with you. I'm not going to have you all turn and talk. Don't worry when there are 100+ of us on here. But think about kids engaging, turning and talking. Think, pair, share. This is a great place to get that engagement started. And so I'm going to ask you all, based on the noticings and wonderings that you have told us, how do you think I should solve this problem? What should I do? And why do you think that's going to work? Go ahead and share your thinking in the chat. Ooh, so Laura's thinking to move that pause square. I think that looks like the pause button too, Laura. I'm so glad somebody else says that because I see that all the time and think back to my old school VCR there. So move the pause square number to the 5. This would be a great place for a check for understanding as well. Thumbs up. Yes, I agree with Laura. We should move that little pause button to the number 5. Thumbs down. No, I disagree. I think we should do something else. Thumbs to the side. I'm just not quite sure yet this morning. Oh, I'm seeing lots of agrees in the chat, sliding the yellow dot to the 5, agree. Oh, and Allison, I like that you have given the why behind that too. So move the slider to the number that is represented in the picture. And so if you all are telling me to move the slider down to the number 5, Allison says, I think that's right. I agree because as you all pointed out earlier, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes, 5 rectangles, 5 parts of that hole. Awesome. And so most of our games have this green go button. And so I'm going to press that. We're going to see if our predictions are right and take a look and see what happens. And so you all heard that little ding, Gigi ran across the screen. So we know we got that problem right. I'm actually going to pause and slow down this animation so we can kind of go back and really analyze and dig in and see why did Gigi get across the screen? Why did we hear that ding and get this right? And so this animation control is actually something that you and your students have the ability to do. And so when that animation started and you saw those pieces start to move, I just double clicked anywhere on the screen. It paused the animation, the scrub bar appears, so then we can play and replay this as many times as we need to really slow the math down and see what happens. Again, this is a great place for a turn and talk as you're kind of scrubbing through this with your kids. All right, guys, I'm going to slow this down. What happened here? Why did this work? Why did Gigi get across the screen? And Gina, you kind of are saying that in the chat, how they show they were all the same size. Absolutely. And so let's pretend a student said that. It shows that they are all the same size. Why did that work? Why did that help us get Gigi across the screen? Oh, and Amber, it reinforces the whole. So this would be a great place to say 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you all said, those parts of the holes earlier. Absolutely. And so we can see that this worked. It lifted that number line up and out of the picture, and Gigi is across the screen. Great work. So I'm actually going to jump around and choose a few different puzzles from some different levels. I'll show you how to do this in just a little bit as well. But I'm going to jump around here And I'm going to pull up this puzzle for us. So taking a look at the new puzzle that we have on the screen, what is something that you notice that is different about this puzzle from the last one that we solved? And again, this would be a great place for a turn and talk with your kids. We're going to use the chat today because there are so many of us and it's so exciting that we were all here. Oh, and Linda, you say one is not a whole, not all the bars are the same size. Ooh, one is divided into 3 parts. Ooh, a fraction name, 2 2/3, absolutely. It's still rectangles, but it's showing, oh, I love this, wholes and parts of a whole or a mixed number. It's great with that vocabulary. Wholes and parts of the wholes, absolutely. Oh, yes, Gina, the number line is partitioned a little bit differently. One of the rectangles is broken into 3 parts and 2 are shaded. Wholes are partitioned into multiple parts, 2 2/3. Ooh, that is a great question. How many parts are shaded? So one person said they think 2 parts is shaded. But this might be a great place to identify a misconception with students, right? Maybe you pose that question. How many parts are shaded? You might have some students raising their hand and say 2. You might have some students raising their hand and say 1, right? It's not quite clear there. 2 students right out of the gate. So this is a great place to have students have that discussion, share their thinking, and really justify and argue why their 2 parts or 1 part is shaded. And yes, that number line is partitioned differently. How is this number line partitioned differently? Ooh, what do you mean by 8? Tell me more about that. Oh, it's allowing us to mark parts of the whole. So maybe mirroring the parts of the whole that we see here. I like that thinking. So here's another engagement strategy that might be good for you and your students. Yes, it is a great opportunity for those misconceptions. So let's talk about that. So we can say, all right, I have some students that are thinking 2 parts are shaded. I have some students who think that 1 part is shaded. Thumbs up or raise your hand if you want to vote for those 2 parts. Do we think the 2 parts are shaded? Thumbs up if you want to vote for that 1 part shaded. All right, and how many ticks are between each hole? It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So maybe fixing and looking to make those thirds. And I have a lot of votes for 2 parts in the chat. Ooh, lots of votes. I'm gonna go opposite here, and I'm gonna say, well, I saw some votes for some 1 parts, right? So we think 1 of these thirds might be shaded. Again, a great place for a turn and talk. How do we want to solve this problem if we're going with the 1 part instead of the 2 parts? Something else that you all can do, and I used to like to do this, I mainly taught 4th and 5th grade, is intentionally get a problem incorrect right out of the gate, right? It shows students that it's okay to make mistakes. We can learn from it, but let's talk about it and see what we can do the next time. Even though I see, if we remember, the shaded color was darker in the past puzzle. Yes, so you're going back and thinking and making that connection to those first puzzles with all of those holes in it. And the shaded usually means a colored part, 2 parts shaded, 1 part not shaded. I totally agree. But I want you all to kind of see what it can look like to maybe not get a question right away. So I'm going to go with, you all told me there were 2 holes like the last puzzle. So I'm going to move my bar down there. And some of you voted for 2/3, but let's take a look and see what happens with that 1/3 that some of us may have thought. So I'm going to move that to 2 1/3. I'm going to press that green go button again, and let's watch and see why this might work or why this might not work. Ooh, so you can see that Gigi didn't make it across the screen. We kind of heard that. I don't know the technical term. I call it a boink sound, not that nice, pretty ding that we heard earlier. And I'm going to use that animation control again, because this is a great place to have students turn and talk again and say, all right, what happened? Our 2 holes fit perfectly, just like the rest of the puzzle. But what happened when our thirds came down? We chose 1 1/3. What do you all notice? Go ahead and type in the chat that happened that made that yellow dot turn red and fall down? Why did Gigi not get across the screen there? What is the math telling us on the screen that happened? Yeah, Gigi stuck. Why did Gigi not pass? The blue line did not go far enough. There were more parts. Oh, there was only 1/3 shaded in, not the 2/3. The yellow dot shows we didn't show enough of that fraction. Absolutely. And so this might be a great place to maybe extend students' thinking and say, all right, draw this out on that number line that we have in our little plastic sleeves. Use those dry erase markers. Why is that not going to work? What's going on? We didn't have enough parts. How can we represent and show those parts? So it's a great place to have really have students really come up with their own thinking, their own visuals, their own drawings as well. And so now, since we didn't get that right, we can go back and try this with those 2 2/3 like you all voted for earlier, which I ignored because I wanted you to see what happens. So I'm going to move this to our 2 holes and 2/3. Let's see if this works this time. There's our 1 hole, our 2 holes, and there's our 2/3 that match that little yellow dot. That number line's lifted and Gigi is up and out of the screen. Great job. And so for the sake of time, I'm going to stop us there at our just the 2 puzzles that we did. Keep that in mind. And I want you to take a moment and think about some ways that I facilitated this puzzle talk and any engagement strategies that you saw that were used, or if you have some engagement strategies of your own that are kind of having those wheels turn. So take a moment, think about those 2 questions on the screen, and then go ahead and share your thinking in the chat. Yes, the turn and talking, absolutely, about possible answers. Think, pair, share, yes. The students doing most of the talking, absolutely, Cassandra, yes. Asking those open-ended questions. Many of the questions were based on your responses as students, absolutely. What do you notice? What do you wonder? I see an ST Math expert in our chat, Amber. I stopped often to ask questions. Yes, that productive struggle during the second puzzle. Some want this number. Let's argue it out. The quiet think time, guiding those student questions. Yeah, the use of that ST Math puzzle to engage the students to think about math without taking a big risk, right? What do you see on the board? Great, excellent. Showing the kids it's okay to get things wrong. Absolutely. And yes, Serena, you can learn a lot from the wrong answer, right? Getting it wrong doesn't mean it's bad. It just means we can learn more from it. Absolutely. Modeling it wrong, learning from it, asking those facilitating questions to probe the learner's thinking. Absolutely. And so with those kind of guided, open-ended facilitating questions, I really used our problem-solving process to guide those questions. And so the first part of that problem-solving process, like Amber said, is to notice and wonder what's on the screen, right? It's a time for them to share, really feel comfortable about talking about math because they're just telling you what they see on the screen. Then we predict how we want to solve the puzzle and justify the why behind it. So turn and talk. Let's talk about our ideas. Let's share out. Then we tested and observed the math, that green go button. And then when we paused the animation and slowed it down, we really were able to analyze and learn from the math that we saw on the screen. Whether we got the question right or whether we got the question wrong, we saw the math happening in the moment. And then something that's really great with those puzzle talks too is that you can really connect and extend. So maybe you're having students writing, drawing, making equations, comparing work with one another to really take their thinking in that mathematical discourse a step further. And so you'll notice that when I did that puzzle talk, I did 2 puzzles, and all of the mathematical language, the thinking, the sharing, the talking that came out of just playing 2 puzzles. So I'm going to show you a few examples of what an ST Math puzzle is not. And some of you have already called out some of these things in the chat, which is amazing. So it's not me, it's not you up there showing the students how to play the puzzle, what to click, what to do, how to solve the problem. It is not a student coming up and doing that same thing, saying, oh, miss, I've played this game already. Let me show you where to click to get Gigi across the screen. It's not playing all of the puzzles in a level or a game. Again, we did just 2, and seeing everything that we were able to pull out, that discussion, the thinking, the sharing out of just those 2 puzzles. And it's not meant to be a long, complicated lesson. You could do this in 10, 15, 20 minutes. Have it be your opening for your whole group lesson. Again, maybe it's a small group station rotation for 15, 20 minutes where students are engaged in that conversation. So I'm going to give you a moment to take a look at what an ST Math Puzzle Talk is. And again, some of you have already called out some of these features. So I'm going to give you a moment to read what's on the screen, what an ST Math Puzzle Talk is. And after taking a look at this list about what an ST Math puzzle is, what kind of stands out to you all here? What do you notice about what an ST Math puzzle is? And Roberta, in a bilingual classroom, you can still do this. We have all of our student-facing resources, which we'll dig into, are in Spanish and in English. So you could have students talking about math in Spanish and in English, and sharing their thinking in that way. And if you have an English speaker and a Spanish speaker maybe working together, that would be a great place for that whiteboard, that number line where students can compare and show their thinking in a mathematical way. And so taking a look at what we notice about what an ST Math puzzle is, yes, students drive the instruction, building confidence in language. The students do most of the talking of their thinking, student driven, right? Student. And then we're just kind of there to guide, to facilitate, ask a couple questions here or there, but we really sit back and let the students take control during a puzzle talk. Absolutely. Yeah, we're just kind of up there. The students are talking through. We're there to guide, but it's really them taking the reins and leading. That's perfect that you're using that same process, absolutely, in word problems. Yes, absolutely. And yes, Susan, I love this. Students showing multiple ways to solve and think, right? I'm probably going to age myself here, but when I was in school, it was, here are the steps. You got to follow them. If you get it right, great. If you don't, I don't know, you're on your own. But now it's so great to encourage kids to show their thinking, show their strategic problem solving in different ways to get to that same answer. I love that. Oh, that's great to hear. Yes, the process with ST Math, right? What do you see? How do you want to solve it? Why? Why did it work? Why did it didn't? Let's move on. Absolutely. So great to hear. And so Allison is going to share a link with you in the chat to our Puzzle Talk Planner. And so I'm going to give you a moment to pull this up, kind of glance over it, and then we're going to break down each part of it and show you how you can really use this to plan and facilitate a puzzle talk with your students. So Allison has just dropped that in the chat for you. So go ahead, click on that link, take a moment to pull it up and glance over it, and then I'm going to walk you through the different parts of it. And so at the very top of that puzzle talk planner is really the first step in using a puzzle talk is to find a puzzle that you want to use. This is a great time to connect the puzzle to maybe students' prior knowledge. Maybe you want to do a puzzle talk that aligns with what you're currently teaching. Maybe you want to spiral back, review some content, or maybe you're working with a small group and you want to maybe look at some content from a different grade level, whether that's filling some gaps from a previous grade level or accelerating students from another. And so I want to show you a few different resources to find and choose games for your ST Math puzzle talks. And so the first is to log into our ST Math accounts and look at the wealth of games that we have available. So I'm going to jump in and log into my ST Math account. And when you log into your accounts, you come to this kind of home landing page. You might have one class, you might have a few classes like I do, but we all have this curriculum button in the top right-hand corner. And so when you click on that curriculum button, your first choice is all learning objectives. So curriculum, all learning objectives. And when you click on that, this is where you have access to every ST Math game at every grade level. And so you can organize it by the ST Math journey. This is where you can really hone in on a particular grade level, looking at that journey. You can also organize these by standards if that works better for your brain and you really want to line up and see the different standards that align with the content that we have. And so once you decide on the objective or topic that you want to work on with your students, when you click on that objective or topic name, a little box pops up, gives you a little more information. When you click on that objective again in the pop-up box, it's going to take you to this screen. We land on this overview tab, but if you jump next door to this games tab, this is where you can see all of the games and all of the different levels for that objective or topic. And so this is a great place to really jump in and play and look at those different levels from your teacher account. So you can click right into them here. It pulls up the game, exactly what the student is going to see, but from your account. And we know it's ours because we have that little GG infinity symbol there. So we can, do all those different tries as many times as we need without losing those 2 GG tries. Oh, perfect. Another way to find ST Math games are looking at our textbook correlations. So Allison is going to put a link to those textbook correlations in the chat for you. And as she's doing that, I'm going to pull these up. And as we scroll down on this textbook correlations, you can see lots of different curriculums that we have here for you. I'm going to scroll down to Eureka. We have a few different types of Eurekas here that you can kind of dig through. And when you click on a particular grade level, it brings you to a PDF. And you will notice that on the left-hand side here, we have all of the modules in Eureka for you. And then in the next column, we have the ST Math objectives or topics that align with those particular modules. And so maybe you're working on with your 3rd graders, these place value objectives. You can then go into your ST Math account and say, all right, I want to find these rounding 3-digit numbers. That's what I want to use to guide my puzzle talk because I am teaching that in the curriculum. So it's a really great way to align what you're teaching with ST Math, if that is something that interests you. Another resource that we have are a list of suggested games. Allison is going to drop this link in the chat for you too. And if you're like, great, Krista, a puzzle talk sounds awesome, but like, I'm not ready to dig through that curriculum correlation, or, I feel overwhelmed looking at all of the objectives in a grade level, this is a great place for you to start. These are kind of tried and true games that we at ST Math and Mind Education love playing and are really engaging to do with students. And so this is a great place to kind of get started as well. We have some for all of our grade levels. And if you are logged into your ST Math account, when you pull this up, you can click directly on the objective and it's going to take you to that same games page that we kind of navigated to earlier. So then you can look and jump and kind of play around with those games and objectives there as well. And so I just threw a lot of resources at you. So I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to look through some of those resources, get an idea for some different things that you can use to find a game, maybe using that curriculum, all learning objectives. Maybe you want to look through the textbook correlations, or maybe you want to play around and look at some of our suggested games. So take about 90 seconds to look through those resources, maybe find a game, and then we're going to move on to planning that second part of our Puzzle Talk planner. All right, so we're going to dig through the remainder of that Puzzle Talk planner. And just keep in mind that that problem solving process that we talked about earlier is really the framework for a puzzle talk. And this planner can really help you think through the different parts of your puzzle talk. And so now that we've, kind of seen where we can choose games, this is where you want to decide about the different levels and the different puzzles that you might want to play. And I do recommend, even if you think your students are ready and past this point, to always start with level 1 of a puzzle. That really helps kind of ground students, get an idea for what they're going to be working on. And that helps them feel more comfortable sharing during that mathematical discourse, those turn and talks, those questions. And one other thing that I want to mention too is all of our puzzles are randomized. And so as you're kind of in and searching for different puzzles, different levels to play, know that the next time you log in, those puzzles, the numbers, maybe the rectangles like we saw earlier, are going to look a little bit different each time. So as you're planning, just think about, hey, what is the math that's really happening behind here? Not necessarily where to click on the screen and what pieces to move, because again, those puzzles are randomized. Another resource that I want to show you are some different tools to connect and extend these puzzle talks. So I have just dropped a link in the chat for you for some connect and extend resources. So when you click on that link, it takes you to our help page here. And a few things I want to point out here. Under the monitoring and supporting students, we do have a link to different math mats. So this is where I got those number lines that you saw earlier. We have some different 10 frames, some different base 10 pieces, hundreds grids, decimal charts that can be helpful as well. And then under enhancing instructional practices, yes, this is for all grade levels to do your puzzle talks. Absolutely. We also have game mats. We don't have these for every game, but we have them for some. And these are really cool because they mirror what students are seeing on the screen. And sometimes it can be really helpful to have something tangible in front of students as they are looking at the board, jotting down their thinking, writing equations, drawing pictures to represent their thinking. And so you could print these out as well, slide them in those little plastic sleeves so they're reusable, and students can really show their thinking, share it with a partner, talk it out for everyone as well. So a few more resources for you to look through. And I want to give you about 2 minutes to maybe play a few puzzles from each level of an objective that you might want to use with your students. Maybe jot down how those levels progress, maybe some questions you might ask students, and then explore those tools to connect and extend their thinking as well. So take about 2 minutes to do that. Please feel free to ask any questions as you're doing that, looking through the resources, playing through some games, and then we'll come back together and start to close out for the morning. Yes, Yvette, we actually do have some resources for station rotations on our help page. And so take about 1 more minute to look through these resources, maybe play through some games. And then Yvette, I'm going to go off script here and I'm going to show you where you can find some of those station rotation resources on our help page. And then we will close out for the morning. All right, so before we close out, I'm going to jump back into my ST Math account. And I want to show you some of those station resources. So in the upper right-hand corner of your account, right by that curriculum button, we have a support button. When you click that, your second option is ST Math Help. And so this is kind of my go-to for any questions I have. We have some nice chunked out resources here, but honestly, this search bar is like Google for ST Math. And so I'm going to type station in here and click enter. When I do that, you'll see an article comes up for schedules and stations. I'm going to click into that and I will drop this link in the chat as well. Don't worry. And this is some suggestions that we have for different scheduling, some different resources for station structures or alternative math blocks as well. And so this might be a great place for you to kind of get those wheels turning about how you can use that in station. So I have just dropped that link into the chat for you all. And before we close out, I just want to show you an example of what this filled out puzzle talk planner can look like. And so you'll see we have the game and the objective in the top. And then I've kind of chunked out the different levels and puzzles to play. And you'll notice that I planned for 2, 3, 4 puzzles. I only got to 2 of those puzzles when we did the puzzle talk together, but that was plenty because we were talking, we were sharing, we were questioning, and we were learning from everything that we saw. So again, these puzzle talks don't need to be long and drawn out. They can be done in a few puzzles like you saw, or a little bit more like we planned together here. And so to start to close out today, I want you to take about a minute to reflect. And I want you to think about maybe an idea that has resonated with you from today's session. Any questions that might still be lingering that Allison can answer in the chat for you. And maybe think of a commitment that you will make today to apply what you have learned. And some of you have already shared that you're ready to go and dive in with your kindergartners, and that's so exciting. So take about 30 seconds to reflect. Think of one of these reflections that you are going to commit to. And then if you feel comfortable, go ahead and share that thinking in the chat. And so with that, we have worked our way through all of our objectives today. You've experienced that puzzle talk, you've seen some facilitation techniques, and you've seen lots of different resources that can support your learning. And so I'm glad to hear that there are, oh yes, the games as part of your puzzle talks, specific about allowing students to use ST Math. It's so easy sometimes to just throw them on those devices and call it a day. So that's great to hear that you're going to use it with a little more intentions. Yes, the planning tool, absolutely. The kids really do love them. It's really exciting to see them get excited about math with these. Yes, the teacher facilitating the problem-solving process, the lesson planning. Ooh, I love that, Phyllis, not just to show students, but your team as well. Yes, share out your learning. Incorporating puzzle talks, absolutely. And I am so glad that you all are able to walk away with some different tools, maybe some different ideas to use. And with that, we have come to the end of our time this morning. Thank you all so much for your time, your questions, your participation. It was really great to have you. I hope you are enjoying all of the sessions at the user conference today. Allison and I will be back this afternoon with a session about integrating Eureka into ST Math. If you all are interested in that, please look at the agenda. Feel free to come to that or other sessions that we have today. Thank you all so much for your time this morning. You were great.